Alright, so today we're going to be talking about my boy, my old guy, my homie, Welt. Now, Welt is by far one of the best characters in the game, for sure. I've seen so many people say that he's D tier, C tier, at the bottom of the list. Oh my god. Does that hurt me? Because Welt is absolutely busting, all honesty, especially if you put him in the right teams and use him in the right way. He's absolutely nasty, and I'm going to be telling you why today. Today we're going to be going over his relics, his teams, his light cones, all that type of stuff regarding Welt, and we're going to be showing you why he's so strong. But before we get into all that, make sure to leave a sub and a like on the video if you're going to be enjoying some Honkai Star Rail content. And also, I also cover Genshin and Honkai content as well, so if you enjoy that, make sure to sub for that. But let's go ahead and start talking about my boy Welt. Now, Welt by himself is already a very strong unit just because he's one of the only people to access the imaginary damage type. Now, of course, this will change in the future, but right now he's the only one, if I am not wrong. Now, for Welt, his kit goes around slowing people down, and when you're pairing this with certain characters, or you're just using it by himself, because he can be a DPS and a support unit, yes, he can be both, you can do some nasty things with Welt. Now, of course, his basic attack is going to be, nothing crazy. It's just going to be a normal imaginary damage, but then his skill and his burst and his talent is where it gets crazy. His skill is going to do damage 3 times, if I'm not wrong, where you're going to be doing it to one, the person you selected, and then 2 other random units. Now, this can hit the same unit multiple times if you're lucky, but for the most part, it does get spread around, and it does get annoying. You don't do as much damage if it spreads around as much, but if it all hits the same enemy or it's only 2 people, you're going to be doing a fat ton of damage. Now, you also have a chance of slowing them down when you hit them as a 67% chance. I'm not sure if this goes up by talent, but you also have a 60% chance of being able to slow them down by 10%, losing their speed by that much for 2 turns. And it's going to help a lot with, edging other characters on top of, the turn list and the Q list so that you're able to do it before your enemy. So this is really cool. And then his ultimate is honestly so freaking strong. His ultimate is an AoE ult, and it also imprisons enemies for 1 turn by 100% chance, so you're not going to be missing. It will imprison them, and when you imprison them, you will have their actions delayed by 33%, and it also reduces their speed by 10%. This is absolutely nasty, and not only is that nasty, he also gets a damage buff on his ult, so his skill and his basic attack are going to do more damage if he does his ult beforehand. So yes, he can be played as a DPS, which is super cool, and he also can be played as a support just because he does so much slowing. And then when he does his talent, if an enemy is already slowed, he does more damage. Like I said, he's a really good DPS, and he is a support. Now, another thing that is wild is his technique. I usually don't go over the techniques regarding these characters, but his is very strong. When you use his technique, it's going to slow enemies in the overworld by 50%, and then it will 100% chance imprison them when they actually get in the fight. When you imprison them, you're going to be delaying their actions by 20%, and you're also reducing their speed by 10%. So yeah, that is busted to have at the start of the match. You're going to be making sure all your teammates get ahead by crazy, making it a lot easier for you to do your damage before they can even get theirs done. Now for Welt, I do have the light cone for him that does defense shredding for Sele because he's on my Sele team. He is a support in my team, and I think he does absolutely amazing. He's able to give Sele more chances to do her turn before other enemies can, and he's also basically buffing Sele's damage from having this defense shred light cone on him. Now, I do have his 5-star option, which is going to be, of course, doing a crazy amount of damage to debuffed enemies, of course, from his imprison and his slow, so that would, of course, be the best thing that you could run. There aren't that many great 4-star options for him just because Sampos is like, kind of only for dot, and the effect hit rate is good, which is going to allow you to slow faster, but his effect chance is already pretty high. You can also, the Kafka one isn't that great either just because, it only helps with shock or wind, so it's not going to help that much. The break effect is nice, but like I said, Welt already does well with it. Other than that, I do think the loop is the best 3-star option for Welt because it increases damage dealt from its wearer when the enemies are slowed, and when you have his burst, when you have this skill who would have a high chance to slow enemies, you can use this and actually do a fat ton of damage. And since it is a 3-star option, you can't do a lot of DPS with this, so this is a really good option to have for his light cone. He doesn't have a lot of really great ones that are 4 stars besides this one to help him with defense shred, but for that 3-star option, it is pretty good. Now, his relic is going to be a little hard for me to find, in all honesty, to like showcase, but his relic is going to be the imaginary type relic. Now I'm gonna see if I can find this really quickly. I don't know if I can find it super quick. Okay, for his relic set, it is going to be the Thief of Shooting Meteor at the current moment, because I have no idea if there's an imaginary set coming into the game later, or I haven't unlocked it. But for the most part, increased break effect by 16%. So you're going to be getting that in prison. You're going to be getting that, you know, shield hit, and when he breaks those shields, which he does really easily with his burst and his skill, you're going to be doing more damage to them when it happens. And you're also be able to regenerate that energy, which is going to give you a chance to use that slow again from his burst. So that's some really cool stuff. I don't think there's an imaginary set in the game at the moment, if I am not wrong. If they do come out later with an imaginary set, then that will be his best slot. But for the moment that I know right now, I can't see it. But for the most part, you do want to run Welt as a DPS or support. If you're running him as a support, you kind of want to have the light cone that I have here, which does the defense shred. If not, the 3-star option and the 5-star option are absolutely amazing. The loop and his signature are going to be what gives him a fat ton of his damage. You want to use Welt in teams where either they need to slow up or you're going to be buffing Welt himself. So if you want to use a character like Sele, use other characters that deal with speed, use other characters that, you know, want to have as many turns as they possibly can, then Welt is still a really good option. Welt can be put on a lot of different teams just because his slow is so strong, and that, you know, a lot of enemies have imaginary shield break on them. So Welt's able to break a lot of different shields. He's able to stop enemies from doing their turn. That's just a very strong thing for him to have, and overall a really busted thing to have. He's kind of like the opposite of Bronya, where instead of buffing up a character's speed and attack, he's being able to slow them and buff his own attack as well. So that's why whenever you run a light cone that's like helping other characters, he's still doing a fair bit of damage because he self buffs himself so much from his traces. You know, just like his right here, his ultimate has a 100% chance of the damage received by targets to increase. He also has one where if they have a weakness break, you're going to be doing 20% more damage. He has a lot of stuff to be able to regenerate his ult, to be able to get his ult back, to be able to use his ult, to be able to do more damage to enemies after his ult. He's just a fat ton of attack buffs on him. So yes, you can run him as a very good imaginary DPS, which, like I said, a lot of characters can use it because of, you know, the imaginary buff or the imaginary shield. He can break a lot of enemies' shields with that, and then as well being a slower, because yeah, him with Sele are absolutely a crack team. They do so much damage together. He helps so much with that infinite you know, slow, and also being able to help Sele get more turns in, especially if you try to pair him up with Asta or Ting Yun. You're going to be doing a fat ton of damage because of the speed increase. With the slow, it's just going to overall make an exponential gap between you, your allies, and the enemies. So that's pretty much it when it comes to Welt. He is an absolutely amazing unit, for sure one of my mainstays on my team. I love using him. He's super cool. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. See y'all in the next one, and peace.